Today I am reviewing the Dell 16 laptop DC16256. If at any time you'd like to explore this product for yourself and grab it at a great price, be sure to check the links below the video. If you are currently on the hunt for a new laptop, you have probably noticed that the market is absolutely saturated with options that all seem to blend together after a while. I have been looking closely at the Dell 16 laptop, specifically the model with the Ryzen 7 processor, and I want to walk you through why this machine might be the right fit for your desk or why it might be a total mismatch for your specific needs. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, feel free to check the links below the video to explore this specific model or find its current pricing, as those numbers tend to fluctuate quite a bit depending on sales cycles. Let us start with the core of this machine, which is that 16-inch display. When you are working on a laptop this size, you are clearly prioritizing screen real estate over portability. The 16:10 aspect ratio is something I always advocate for because it gives you that extra vertical space that is so essential for document editing, web browsing, or just having two windows open side by side without feeling cramped. It is a full HD plus panel, which means you are getting a slightly higher resolution than your standard 1080p screen. In practice, this provides a nice, crisp look for text and spreadsheets. However, it is important to be realistic here. This is not a color-accurate creative workstation display. If you are a professional video editor or a photographer who needs perfect color reproduction for print or high-end web work, this panel is going to leave you wanting more. It is an anti-glare, non-touch display, which I think is a smart move for a productivity-focused laptop. Touchscreens on laptops this size often end up being fingerprint magnets that just add unnecessary glare and weight. The ComfortView feature is another inclusion that Dell highlights, and while it is essentially a software-based blue light reduction, it does make a difference if you're prone to eye strain during those long late-night sessions. Moving on to the performance, you are looking at the AMD Ryzen 7 250 chip paired with 16 gigabytes of memory. This is a very capable setup for the overwhelming majority of office tasks, student work, and general home use. AMD processors have gained a massive reputation for their efficiency and their ability to handle multitasking without stuttering, and this configuration should be able to keep up with dozens of browser tabs, heavy Excel workbooks, and background processes like cloud syncing or video calls without breaking a sweat. The 1TB solid-state drive is a sweet spot for most users. It gives you plenty of room for your local files, media, and applications without having to constantly worry about offloading data to an external drive or the cloud. And this is a big but, you need to understand that this is an integrated graphics machine. The AMD Radeon graphics are perfectly fine for streaming 4K video, light photo editing, or even some very casual gaming. If you are planning on buying this to play modern, graphically demanding titles, you're going to be disappointed. It is not built for that. This is a workhorse, not a gaming rig. One of the features that Dell talks about is the adaptive thermals. This is an interesting bit of engineering because it essentially uses sensors to detect whether the laptop is sitting on a desk or on your lap. When it senses a stable surface, it can optimize the power draw and fan speeds to keep things cool and efficient. It is a nice touch, but it is not magic. If you are pushing the processor to its absolute limit with heavy rendering or massive data exports, the fans are going to spin up, and you're going to hear them. That is just the physics of moving heat out of a thin chassis. The keyboard is a full-sized layout, which includes a dedicated number pad. For data entry, accounting, or anyone who spends their life in spreadsheets, this is a non-negotiable feature. The keys have a decent amount of travel, which makes typing feel substantial rather than mushy. It also features a backlit keyboard, which is essential for those of us who work in lower light environments. There is also a fingerprint reader integrated into the power button, which is one of those quality of life features that you do not realize you need until you have it. Being able to wake your laptop and log in with a single touch is so much faster than typing in a PIN or a long password every time you walk away from your desk. Now, let us talk about the webcam. Dell has included an FHD camera here, which is a major step up from the grainy 720p sensors that were the industry standard for so long. It includes wide dynamic range and temporal noise reduction. In plain English, this means it handles tricky lighting better than older cameras. If you are sitting with the window behind you, or if you are in a room with dim lighting, you're going to look much more professional than you would on a lesser laptop. It is not going to replace a dedicated DSLR or a high-end webcam, but for daily Zoom or Teams calls, it is more than adequate. Where this laptop shines is in its serviceability and support. The 1-year on-site service is a significant value add that often gets overlooked. Most manufacturers expect you to mail your laptop back to a repair depot if something goes wrong, which means you are without your primary tool for a week or more. Dell's promise to send a technician to your home or office if a hardware issue cannot be solved remotely is a massive safety net. For a student or a remote worker, that kind of reliability is worth a premium. However, I want to be very clear about who this laptop is not for. If you are a mobile professional who travels every single week, a 16-inch laptop is a commitment. It is not going to fit easily into smaller bags, and it is going to take up a significant amount of table space in a coffee shop or on an airplane tray table. If portability is your number one priority, you should be looking at 13 or 14-inch models. Furthermore, if you are looking for a premium build with an all-metal chassis that feels like a piece of jewelry, you might find the finish on this machine a bit utilitarian. It is built to be a tool, not a fashion statement. The plastic components, while durable, do not have that cold, premium feel of a high-end ultrabook. I also want to address the potential for disappointment. People often buy laptops like this expecting them to be fast forever. While the Ryzen 7 is a great processor, you need to be mindful of how you maintain Windows 11. Over time, background apps and bloated startup sequences will slow down any machine. I always recommend that users take the time to clean up their startup items and keep their drivers updated through the Dell Support Assistant. If you ignore the software side of things, even the fastest hardware will start to feel sluggish within a year or two. Another point to consider is the screen brightness. While it is perfectly functional for indoor office work or home use, if you are planning on working on a sunny patio or in a very bright, sun-drenched sunroom, you might find the screen struggling to overcome the glare. It is not a high-nit panel, so it is best suited for controlled indoor lighting environments. When we look at the value proposition, you are getting a very solid, mid-range productivity machine. You are paying for a reliable processor, a generous amount of RAM, a large SSD, and a very usable 16-inch screen. You are also paying for the peace of mind that comes with Dell's support network. When you compare this to some of the cheaper, budget-tier laptops, you will notice the difference in the keyboard quality and the overall chassis rigidity. When you compare it to the ultra-expensive pro-level machines, you will notice that you are saving a significant amount of money by skipping features you probably do not need, like advanced color-accurate screens or dedicated graphics cards. If you are a college student, this is a fantastic choice. The screen is big enough to have a research paper open on one side and your notes on the other. It is powerful enough to handle any software you will be required to run for your coursework, and the number pad is a lifesaver for statistics or business classes. If you are a remote worker who spends most of your day at a desk, this is also a very strong contender. You can easily plug this into an external monitor setup, and the 16-inch screen provides a great secondary display area. On the other hand, if you're a creative professional who relies on Adobe Creative Cloud, you might find the integrated graphics to be a bottleneck. While you can certainly edit photos and do light graphic design work, if you are rendering complex 4K video projects, you'll find yourself waiting for the progress bar a lot more often than you would on a machine with a dedicated GPU. I also want to touch upon the general feel of the Windows 11 integration on this hardware. Dell has done a good job of keeping the bloatware to a reasonable level, but it is still there. When you first set this up, take the time to uninstall the pre-installed trials and junk software that you do not need. It makes a noticeable difference in the snappiness of the operating system right out of the box. The fingerprint reader works consistently, and the wake from sleep time is nearly instantaneous, which is exactly what you want in a modern laptop. Regarding the battery life, you should expect a standard workday of mixed usage. If you are just doing word processing and web browsing, you will get through most of a standard shift. If you are pushing the brightness to the maximum and streaming high-definition video, the battery will drain significantly faster, as is the case with all large-screen laptops. It is not a marathon runner, but it is not a tethered desktop replacement either. It strikes a fair balance for a device of this size. I also want to talk about the speakers. They are downward firing, which is standard for this class of laptop. They are perfectly fine for video calls and the occasional YouTube video, but if you are planning on listening to music or watching movies, you're going to want a pair of headphones or external speakers. The audio lacks depth and bass, which is expected given the physical limitations of the chassis. Do not expect to be blown away by the sound quality. The port selection is another area that is worth mentioning. You're going to want to verify exactly what you need in terms of connectivity, but generally, these Dell 16-inch models offer a decent array of ports for peripherals. If you are someone who uses a lot of older USB-A devices, you will appreciate that they are still present, as many newer thin and light laptops have moved entirely to USB-C. When you are making a decision this large, it is easy to get caught up in the spec sheet. But specs don't tell the whole story of how a machine feels to use every day. Does the hinge feel sturdy? Yes. Does the keyboard deck flex when you type? Not noticeably. Is the screen bright enough for your office? Yes. These are the things that define your experience over the long term. This laptop feels like a reliable daily driver. It is not trying to be the thinnest, the lightest, or the most powerful machine on the planet. It is trying to be the most practical. There is a certain honesty in a design like this. It is a tool that is meant to be used, not just looked at. The finish is professional and understated, which makes it a great choice for a corporate environment. It doesn't scream for attention, and it doesn't have any flashy RGB lighting or gamer-centric design elements. It is just a well-thought-out computer that does what it is supposed to do. If you are coming from an older, slower laptop, the jump in performance with a Ryzen 7 processor and a fast NVMe SSD will feel like night and day. Everything will open faster. Your system updates will be less painful, and the overall responsiveness will make your daily tasks feel less like a chore. One final piece of advice. If you do decide to pick this up, make sure you take advantage of the support tools that come pre-installed. Dell's support software is actually one of the better ones in the industry. It will keep your BIOS up to date and ensure that your system stays secure. Many people ignore these prompts, but they are a big part of why these machines stay reliable over the years. I think the biggest disappointment for some users might be the weight. If you are used to carrying a 13-inch laptop, a 16-inch machine is going to feel heavy in your backpack. There is no way around that. It is a trade-off you make for the massive screen real estate. Before you pull the trigger, consider whether you really need that 16-inch screen, or if you would be better served by a 14-inch model and a separate monitor for your desk. In summary, this Dell 16 laptop is a balanced, sensible choice for anyone who needs a reliable machine for work or school. It prioritizes screen space, typing comfort, and solid performance over flashy gimmicks. It is not for gamers, and it is not for high-end creative professionals who need color-perfect displays, but for the vast majority of users, it hits the sweet spot. It is a workhorse that is designed to last, supported by a company that is willing to stand behind the hardware at your location. If you are looking for a laptop that will get the job done day in and day out without any fuss, this is a very strong contender. Again, remember to check the links below to see the current pricing and availability. It is a crowded market, but sometimes the best choice is the one that is the most straightforward, and that is exactly what this machine represents. It is a device that puts functionality first, and in a world of complex, overpriced tech, that is actually a refreshing change of pace. I hope this helps you get a clearer picture of whether this laptop is going to be a good addition to your life, or if you should keep looking for something that better matches your specific workflow. It is a solid, capable, and honest piece of hardware that does exactly what it says on the box, and in my experience, that is exactly what most people are actually looking for when they start their search. Take your time, weigh your priorities, and make sure you are getting the machine that fits your lifestyle, not just the one that looks good on a spec sheet. If you have any specific questions about how this might handle your particular software or setup, feel free to drop a comment, but for now, this is a machine that I think earns its place on a desk. It is not perfect, but it is very good at being what it is.